Hello, welcome back to Hazel Jane Tarot. And today I am bringing you a very special walkthrough and review of the Anne of Green Gables tarot cards. Now, this is a deck that I've only just got this week, but I've been really enjoying looking at it and I couldn't wait to share it with you. So, I'm going to have a little bit of a chat about Anne of Green Gables and about the deck itself. So this might end up being a long one, but we'll see how we go. So, first of all, for the three people out there who maybe haven't heard of Anne of Green Gables, I'll just fill you in with a little bit of background. So this deck is based on a book series. Anne of Green Gables by Ellen Montgomery was published first, I think. Gosh, I should have looked this up. It was first published in 1925. So it's a very old book series, but it was very popular when I was a child in the 1980s, partly because of the TV adaptation, which you can see pictured here on the cover of my very well-worn copy of the book, which the TV series came out in 1985. So Anne of Green Gables is a book series written by a Canadian writer set in Prince Edward Island. It's about the orphan Anne Shirley, who goes to live with Matthew and Marilla Cuthbert at Green Gables, which is the house. And it's sort of her escapades and adventures in the village where they live, her going to school, growing up, going to college as the books continue. So Anne of Green Gables is the first one. Anne of Avonlea, then where she's a school teacher in the local school, very young though, still teaching. Anne of the Island, which was my favourite of the series, where she goes to college and lives with friends at college and so on. And this is the one that sort of has the most significant romance subplot, or main plot, with Gilbert Blythe. Then Anne of Windy Willows, which I have like an old hardback ex-library copy. Then followed by Anne's House of Dreams, where she is married to Gilbert and sort of their early married life. And then Anne of Ingleside, which is sort of their later married life and starts to focus a little bit more on their children. There are two more books that follow that, Rainbow Valley and Rilla of Ingleside, which I never bought copies of. I read them from the local library, but I never bought copies of because they were about Anne's children, and I wasn't as interested in that, even as a kid, as I was in the story of Anne herself. I remember quite enjoying Anne of Ingleside, although it's a bit more mature storyline because they're older and parents and so on. But I always loved this copy because it has the gorgeous Gilbert on the cover. When I was a little girl watching this, so this was on TV when I was about 7-8 years old. I wanted to marry Gilbert Blythe when I grew up. So, and I wanted to be Anne Shirley. It's very hard for me to overstate how strongly I identified with Anne in those books. I read Anne of Green Gables for the first time. I believe I was 7. My mum thinks I was 8 when I read Anne of Green Gables for the first time, but that sort of coincides with, I would have been 8 in 1986. So that would have sort of coincided with the TV show being on TV here, but I do think I read the book first. One of my cousins had lent it to my mum, and then my mum wasn't reading it, so I took it and read it. I remember not understanding what was going on in the first chapter. Obviously the language, because it was published in 1925, was hard to read when I was a little kid. But I've reread the first couple of books, particularly Anne of Green Gables and Anne of the Island. I've read those multiple times over the years, but as a little girl, I mean, my best friend and I used to play Anne of Green Gables. We used to both play that we were Anne. Anne and Diana are the best friends, and we modelled our friendship on their friendship, although when we played, we both were Anne because nobody wanted to be Diana. We used to argue over which of us was going to marry Gilbert Blythe when we grew up. I mean, it was intense, and I was really intensely over identified with that character. And then so I have the DVDs of the Sullivan TV series, which is just wonderful. And you know, when I watch it, it's almost like watching a video of my own childhood, because I loved it so much when I was a child. Like, even though my own life is nothing like this beautiful, you know, Prince Edward Island location. And that's the sequel, which was on TV then a few years later, which it's such a great show. In this box set, it also has this DVD, The Continuing Story, which I have never watched because it departs really significantly from the books. Having said that, Anne of Green Gables, the sequel, also departs quite significantly from the books because it combines some of the elements from Anne of the Island and Anne of Windy Willows and sort of changes the plot quite a lot, changes the rival love interest from the books and so on. But because I kind of watched this around the same time that I originally read the books, both of those versions of the story kind of exist for me, if that makes sense. So anyway, now that I've established my massive fandom of Anne of Green Gables, I'm sure there are many girls, if there's any, well, let me rephrase, I don't think there are many people watching this video, but I'm sure there are many people out there who are just as big, if not bigger, fans of Anne of Green Gables than I was. And one of them seems to be the creator of this tarot deck. So let's come back to the Anne of Green Gables tarot. It's in this lovely linen finish box, two-piece box where the lid slides off. I believe this was a Kickstarter, and I hadn't heard anything about it until I was on the Hermit's Cave group on Facebook, and someone posted for the Lovers Week where they're showing, you know, all different versions of the Lovers card. Somebody posted the Lovers card from this deck, and I just was like, there's an Anne of Green Gables tarot, I have to get this. And the creator, now interestingly, the creator's name isn't listed on the box anywhere. To get the creator's name, you have to look in the booklet. I'll put their name, their information at the underneath as well for you if you want to check it out. So I don't know what the creator's actual name is. It's not listed anywhere, but their Instagram is @disorderedmind_zines. So this creator, this artist, makes, as far as I can tell from their Instagram, they produce zines on things to do around mental health, and their Instagram is full of like colorful art that's, and little, you know, quotes and words of wisdom that they've created, you know, to help people with mental health and so on. So it's really worth checking out their account on Instagram. And the way I acquired a copy of this deck was that I direct messaged them on Instagram, and they got back to me. I then paid them the money directly for the deck, and they sent me the copy in the post. The communication with the creator was great. They sent me a photo of the package before they posted it and so on. The deck was £25, which for an indie deck is pretty good value, and then £5 postage in the UK. I don't know if it would be different. If obviously it would be more if you were overseas. So, is there any world more magical than that created by Ellen Montgomery? Generations have looked to Anne for inspiration and guidance. This tarot deck will allow you to do so in a whole new way. So, absolutely, I concur. Is there any world more magical than that created by Ellen Montgomery? I don't know. Not many worlds more magical, to be sure. So, what we're going to spend the rest of this video doing is having a look at the cards, and I will be sharing my thoughts as to which scenes or moments or characters from the books I think are being reflected in the card, and how well I think it goes with the tarot archetype and so on. So I really like the backs, the Anne's archetypal red hair on the little A for Anne, and the book and the pen, obviously, because she's a writer. So it's a really cute little back design. I have not watched the Netflix series Anne with an E, so I have no idea if any of the art or inspiration in this deck comes from Anne with an E. I can definitely see the influence of the Sullivan Entertainment series from the 80s, in the way some of the characters are drawn. But if there is an echo of Anne with an E, you would have to tell me, because I wouldn't recognize it because I've never watched it. I've heard it departs quite a lot from the books, and because I love the Sullivan Entertainment series so much, I would rather just rewatch that than watch a new version, to be honest. Okay, so let's have a look. So here we have Anne depicted as the Fool, and you can see the flower and the little backpack, which are very familiar from the Rider-Waite-Smith. But instead of being on a cliff edge, we have the Fool walking on the ridge of the schoolhouse. So this is a scene from Anne of Green Gables, from the book, where she is dared to walk on the ridge of the schoolhouse, and does so. So that is a perfect choice for the Fool card. That's great. I love that. Now, the Magician, we have Anne looking a little bit older, and dressed up in like a fancy ball gown, and we have all the magician elements from the Rider-Waite-Smith all present. I'm not sure what specific scene this might refer to, so but maybe it seems like when she's older. The High Priestess is lovely, and this makes me think of the beginning of the story where Anne is escaping into her imagination when she's living a difficult life in before she's adopted by Matthew and Marilla, and that she goes off and by herself and reads poetry and escapes into her imagination. So that's what I'm reminded of here. Now, this just shows me there's a very slight printer error on some of the cards. You can see there's a little horizontal line very faintly across the cards. So just from a review point of view, that's maybe something people might want pointed out, but it's on a few of the cards. It doesn't bother me in the slightest. Anyway, moving on. This image, the Empress, again, we have a slightly older Anne. And this reminds me very much of this image from the TV show of The Picnic. And I believe that was when she's a little bit older, when she was a teacher on a school picnic. So that's what that reminds me of. Now, the Emperor, we have... what's her name? I've suddenly drawn a blank. This is her colleague, or another teacher from Kingsport Ladies College. Oh, that's going to annoy me. Catherine, yes. Catherine with a K. So this is Catherine, who is quite a strict, traditional, no-nonsense teacher, and who kind of softens up a little bit through her friendship with Anne, and who comes to visit her at Avonlea. And this reminds me of that scene where, and it's particularly in the TV show, where Catherine comes to visit Anne at Green Gables. Now, the little guidebook is mainly focused on the keywords, and I think this is somewhere where the book could... I wish the book had have talked a little bit more about what scene from Anne of Green Gables is being reflected, or what character is being shown. Because if you look at the little guidebook for the majors that I've shown you so far, you have really perfectly good keywords for tarot. But if you're an established tarot reader, this is not so necessary. But you might, I think it would have been really great to have to know what scenes it was. However, there is a lot of fun to be had in trying to work out which scene it is, and maybe it might resonate for different people and different fans of Anne in different ways. So it doesn't really bother me as a big Anne fan not to have it listed, but maybe if you weren't so into the books, you might want to know what scene was being talked about. There are some nice little touches in the guidebook, though. We have these little colour pages, like here for the Emperor, where you can see that Catherine is a dominating authority figure, and the way she's depicted is like she's a gatekeeper, which works well for the idea of the Emperor. And it's nice to see the elements, the thought that has gone into the design of the cards. That doesn't happen for every card, but it's done for some of the cards in the guidebook. So the Hierophant, this is really interesting. We have Miss Stacy, who was the teacher at Avonlea School, and it, while the posture and like the pupils are like the acolytes and the keys on the table and so on, it's very reminiscent of the Rider-Waite-Smith, which is cleverly done. And Miss Stacy wasn't a religious leader so much as just a school teacher, but very inspirational, very kind as a character in the story. So this is a really nice softening of the Hierophant archetype in this deck. I really like that. Then for the Lovers, this was the card that I'd seen on the Hermit's Cave group that made me want to go and buy the deck. This is Anne and her bosom companion, Diana, her very best friend. And I think that friendship is such a core of the story, and it's lovely that instead of using Anne and Gilbert, the romantic relationship, which are depicted elsewhere in the Two of Cups, for example, and lots of other cards, that the creator chose to put Anne and Diana for the Lovers. I think that's really nice. The Chariot, that doesn't bring to mind any particular scene. I can't remember what that might be. Here we have Anne so this is from quite early in the story, I think. Anne had an imaginary friend called Katie Morris, who was essentially her reflection, and it was a way she dealt with her loneliness and her fears when she was before she was adopted by Matthew and Marilla, when she was alone, and that strength, that using that image for strength, I think is really effective. Like the strength that we have inside, the way she's able to keep going and keep her her imagination and her spark and her enthusiasm for life, even in really difficult circumstances. That's lovely. Then we have quite a traditional hermit, which is Anne again. Doesn't remind me of any particular scene. The Wheel of Fortune, this is adorable. I love this. Tomorrow is always fresh with no mistakes in it. This is Anne's kind of little motto, and it's something that my mum would say to me still even, or my sister might say to me, because obviously we all watched the TV show together when I was a child and so on, and my mum has read the books. And actually when I told my mum about this, she has recently reread the books, and she quite enjoyed flicking through this with me, even though she has no interest in tarot at all. Now Justice, I think this is Marilla, possibly baking or cooking or something. So Marilla was the lady who adopted, the brother and sister who adopted Anne. Now we have quite a classic Hanged One. This is not like a scene from the movie or the books, but it's your classic Hanged One archetype. But with the cherry blossoms, I'm reminded of the scene where, arriving into Avonlea, they go down what Matthew calls it the avenue, and Anne says, no, it's the white way of delight. And she takes something that is very normal and everyday to Matthew, Cuthbert, which is the man of the brother and sister who adopt. And Matthew has looked at this avenue his whole life and has never thought it anything special, but Anne looks at things in a different way, and she calls it the white way of delight. And I think that the including of the cherry blossoms makes me think about that aspect of the Hanged One, about taking a new perspective, looking at things in a different way, and how Anne's positivity and Anne's imagination allows her to view ordinary things in a magical way. And then we have for Death, the awful sad scene where Matthew dies in Anne of Green Gables. So spoiler alert, sorry. And again, visually, this is very reminiscent for me of the TV show. But yeah, this is a death card that is literally depicting the death of a character. And then straight after the death card, we have Matthew alive again as Temperance. And I think that's a lovely choice for Temperance. We have different elements represented here by within the card, which is really nice and cleverly done within the world of the cards. Matthew is a lovely, gentle, kind character, and here you can see obviously he's working, and he works really well for Temperance. This made me laugh when I saw it. The dress with the puffed sleeves that that Anne really, really, really wanted. Um, that as the devil, the things that tempt us, the excesses, the things that we think are going to make us happy. That's great. The Tower, we have that infamous moment where Anne smashes her slate over Gilbert Blythe's head, which seems like a disaster. Maybe it could be a social disaster that she's done that. But actually, he ends up falling in love with her. But yes, that moment of calamity, and look at all the little shocked scream like Edvard Munch style faces all of all the classmates shocked looking at this moment. I thought that was funny as well. And the star, we have the Anne sitting writing in sand dunes. Dreamy, the pages are blown away, her hat's blown away, she doesn't care, she's just immersed in her thoughts and her hopes and dreams. That's lovely. Then the moon, we have Anne as the Lady of Shalott, where she dresses up like the Waterhouse painting, like she dresses up like the Lady of Shalott and gets pushed off in this little punt. And of course, there's a hole in the punt and it starts to sink and she ends up stuck under a bridge, and it's not in any way as romantic and lovely and as she thinks it's going to be. And I think this adds a layer of meaning to the moon, which sometimes can be about deception and fantasy and so on. But, to think about the way we might romanticize things, the way we might imagine things should be. And the reality, and the reality is in this scene, she does end up getting rescued by Gilbert, who is the guy for her in the end, but she doesn't see it as romantic at the time, as she's like bedraggled and it's not the romantic fantasy she had in her mind. So I think that ties in really nicely with the moon. Then for the sun, we have Vignettes of Avonlea by Anne Shirley when Anne gets her book published, which is obviously a symbol of huge success and creative success and public recognition and so on. It's like her book baby. And I love that, as instead of people get so bored of the baby on a horse that is in the Rider-Waite-Smith traditional imagery, and here we have instead of a baby on a horse, we have a book baby, the thing that you created, and being celebrated for that. So that's really nice. I love that. Judgment, we have Anne's classmates celebrating, I think this is like with them celebrating her getting the Avery Scholarship, being able to go to college, and lifting her up and celebrating. And the little guidebook mentions this card as well and talks about, being lifted up to, lifted up high, going up to a new level, a new start, a new calling. She's going to move on to college and so on. Which is nice. I actually wish there was more of that in this little guidebook, because when the creator has explained her thoughts behind the image, it really adds something to my understanding of what she's doing. And then the world, we have Anne going back home to Green Gables. So lovely. That's the major arcana. So moving on to the minors. So let's see. So as you can see, just on a physical side, the cardstock is lovely. It's quite thick. I would find it hard to riffle shuffle this deck. It's very matte, and but to overhand shuffle, it is just lovely. The cards slide past each other, and it fans out really nicely. So it has enough of a sort of like silk finish where they're matte to the eye, but they have that sort of silky slidey feeling, which is lovely. Okay, so Ace of Wands, I think that's Anne and Marilla, but it doesn't remind me of any particular scene. Two of Wands, we've Anne working hard, doing her schoolwork. Three of Wands, I think this is Anne sending off her book to the publisher, or maybe one of her stories that she's written, sending it off for consideration. But it looks like a big parcel, so it probably is her book. So there's that sense of having finished something, accomplished something, sending it off, waiting for your ships to come in, that you get with the Three of Wands, which I think is really clever. Four of Wands, the wedding. What I see here is Anne and Diana, maybe the night before Diana's wedding, together laughing and, enjoying that moment of celebration. So it sort of shows a wedding, but in a slightly different way. The Five of Wands, the conflict, the kind of maybe pointless conflict that you get with the Five of Wands. Here we have the moment just before the Tower card where Anne had smashed her slate over Gilbert's head. Here we have him pulling her hair, and in a moment she's going to hit him with her slate. So he infamously calls her carrots and pulls her hair to try to get her attention. And yeah, that doesn't end well for him. So the conflict in the Five of Wands. The Six of Wands, this took me a while to figure out what it was. And I think this is from the Sullivan TV show, where they put on a production at Kingsport Ladies College of Mary Queen of Scots, of the play, and Emmeline Pankhurst. No, not Pankhurst. Emmeline Pankhurst is a suffragette. Anyway, Emmeline, the character of Emmeline, plays Mary Queen of Scots at the last minute, and ends up, making a huge success of it and being celebrated for doing such a good job in the role. So that's what I think is being depicted here in the Six of Wands. And Seven of Wands, here we have Anne and Diana again doing a three-legged race. I can't remember what scene specifically this might refer to, but I'll have that one and how that fits with the Seven of Wands energy, sort of holding high ground, trying to defend your position and so on. That doesn't really resonate for me, so I'll have to have we think about that one a bit more. The Eight of Wands, we have Gilbert and Anne racing downhill on their bicycles, and it reminds me of the dynamic between Anne and Gilbert for a lot of the time at school, where they are very competitive with each other for getting top of the class and so on, and their competitiveness helps to push them forward and to be more successful. So that's what I'm reminded of with this card. The Nine of Wands, this is, again, that visually reminds me of the TV show, where Anne is trying to get started as a teacher at Kingsport Ladies College, and some of the kids draw a face very like that on the board. So that sense of being under attack and trying to hold the line and maintain boundaries and rules as a teacher, that really resonates. That's a great card. And then for the Ten of Wands, being sort of overcome with the burden, we have Anne as a young child before she's adopted by Matthew and Marilla, where she's with the Hammonds, and they have a number of sets of twins and lots of young children that she has to take care of, and it's really hard work. So that's what I see in this card. The Page of Wands, not sure what particular scene this might be, but Anne. And then the Knight of Wands, we have Anne chasing the cow out of the muddy field, and I think she sells the cow because she thinks it's her cow that has broken into someone else's field again and again, and she sells it on the spur of the moment, and it ends up being somebody else's cow that she's accidentally sold. So this makes me think for the Knight of Wands about rushing in and doing things too hastily. And then we have Anne again as the Queen of Wands, and Gilbert as the King of Wands. And this is to link back to the Moon card, where we had Anne as the Lady of Shalott in the boat, floating off, and then she was going to sink. This is the King of Wands is Gilbert coming in his boat to come and rescue her. So now we have the Cups suit. So for the Cups, then we have Anne. I'm not sure the scene. There's lots of little parties and birthdays and things in the story. I do think there's something about her getting ice cream for the first time at one of the parties. That's something maybe when she first sort of meets Diana. I think I remember something about that. So yes, the Ace of Cups. Then we have the Two of Cups, which is this is the end of Anne of the Island, when Anne and Gilbert declare their love for each other finally. And in the TV show, it happens on a bridge overlooking a kind of a lake. So that makes me think of that. Three of Cups, we have Anne and Gilbert and Diana. Four of Cups, not sure what scene this is reminiscent of, but we have Anne again. So Anne has shorter hair in some of the scenes because she tries to dye her hair black, and it doesn't go well because she hates her red hair when she's very little, and she tries to dye her hair and it turns green. So the Five of Cups, the grief at the green hair, really works really well. And then obviously she has the shorter hair in some of the cards because she's had to cut the green out of her hair. Six of Cups, we have Anne and Diana again. Seven of Cups, and in some sort of in the store or maybe in the larder. Eight of Cups, not sure the scene again. Nine of Cups, nice sort of this idea of fulfillment, the sort of the kind of wish came true. Well, we have Marilla and Matthew, the brother and sister, with Anne going to be adopted by them and stay with them, and they become a family together. So that's a really nice image for the Nine of Cups. And then the Ten of Cups, we have Anne and Gilbert together dancing, it looks like, with these little around them as a couple. And then for the Page of Cups, we have Gilbert. Knight of Cups, we have Anne, maybe I would say here working on her creative writing. And of these backwards. So Anne, Queen of Cups is Anne, and the King of Cups is Diana. Then for the swords, I'm not 100% sure the scene here, but Anne, or Matthew and Marilla, and possibly arguing. Matthew looks like he's angry. I'm not sure what's being depicted here, but I'm thinking Ace of Swords, new idea, maybe the idea to get to adopt a child in the first place, or maybe this is Matthew defending the idea of keeping Anne. They originally had wanted to adopt a boy and they ended up with a girl by accident, and this could be Matthew sort of making that choice. No, we're gonna keep the girl, we're gonna keep Anne. Two of Swords, this moment of decision. I think this is lovely, with Matthew kind of hiding around the corner, a little bit too shy to approach this little girl who's waiting on the train platform with her carpet bag when he's come to collect her, and it's a girl and they were expecting a boy and he's not sure what to do. That's great. Three of Swords, we're jumping ahead to Anne of the Island, to the end of that story where Gilbert becomes incredibly ill and they think he might die, and so Anne there is at his bedside, and the Three Swords, it shows that grief and heartbreak of that difficult time. Four of Swords, not sure the scene exactly, but we have Anne and Diana relaxing in the back of a wagon as children. Five of Swords, the grey hair's making me think this is Miss Rachel Lynde, and this could be when Anne sort of speaks her mind to Rachel Lynde and gets in trouble and has to apologise for it later. Six of Swords, heading off for something new. This could be Anne heading off to college. So here with the Seven of Swords, we have the scene where Anne forgets to cover the sauce for the plum pudding before Miss Stacy was coming to visit for tea, and a mouse got into it and drowned. And so Anne decides she doesn't tell anybody, she just takes the mouse out, and then during the dinner she eventually blurts out at the last minute before they eat it that a mouse had died in the sauce, and so they can't eat the pudding. But that idea in the Seven of Swords of being deceitful, I think is captured really well with this. I think the creator's done a great job, in how they've chosen scenes from the story to fit with these cards. So the Eight of Swords, this is a card of, looks like grief. The person is all in black, all in mourning. But I'm not sure who this is. Again, the white hair, the blanket over the knees might suggest an older person, but I'm not sure who's represented here. There is an older woman in the TV show who is Emmeline's grandmother, who this could be representing, but I can't remember her name. It's not coming to me just now. The Nine of Swords, this, straight away I was thinking, this is the scene where Diana's younger sister becomes really, really sick. And because Anne had had so much experience caring for the Hammond children when she was younger, she knew what to do. And I'll never forget, it was an ipecac that she had. I don't even know what that is, that she had used to try to help the little girl recover. And she does recover when the doctor finally gets there. And they say that the doctor says that Anne had saved the little girl's life. So this is that that's that scene, I think. And then the Ten of Swords again, not sure what this could be. It again looks like maybe Diana and Anne, or it could be Marilla with her hair down, and they could be grieving for Matthew after Matthew died. So I'm not entirely sure. Page of Swords, I love this, Anne in a library, and I love the way the eyes are done here, like the sort of, sort of shining with joy. Look at all the books. This one took me a while to work out, but I think this is Jen Pringle in one of the pupils that she teaches in Kingsport Ladies College, who is quite unpleasant and hard work. So the Knight of Swords, because I thought it was Diana because the hair looks very similar, but Diana is, the facial expression is too sly to be Diana. So I think it might be Jen Pringle. This I love, 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 love. I was so excited to see this when Anne is at college. She her friends, they rent a house that has these two matching dogs on the fireplace, and I think they're called Gog and Magog. But this sort of phase of her life of being really successful at college is really captured with this card and the Queen of Swords. And then the King of Swords, we have Gilbert qualifying as a doctor, which is great. And one suit left to go. If you're still with me, thank you. So we have the Ace of Pentacles. Oh, loved this. So Anne, as a child, when they were at school, Diana enters her into a creative writing competition for the Rollings Reliable Baking Powder Company, and it wins. But the story that Anne had originally written, Diana had inserted in all the references to the baking powder, into this love story that Anne had written, and so everybody in Avonlea is like really excited and celebrating the success of Anne getting this prize, whereas Anne herself is horrified because she wouldn't have, cheapened her story by inserting all these commercial references to sell the story, or to win the competition. So it's an interesting choice for the Ace of Pentacles, like a new start, like it is maybe a first recognition for her writing. And it's commercially successful and she wins some money, I think, but it's maybe not in the way she expected. So it's an interesting choice for Ace of Pentacles. Two of Pentacles is back to the Hammonds again, I think here. We have this sense of juggling. So juggling, having to care for the children and trying to keep reading and keeping her imagination alive. Three of Pentacles, we have this lovely scene of what I think is Rachel Lynde and Marilla and Anne working on a quilt together. Four of Pentacles, this has kind of stumped me. I'm not sure about this card, but it does ring some sort of a bell for Anne's House of Dreams. I think there was something to do with somebody who comes from far away, or has maybe been overseas and returns, and just with the house and so on, it just makes me think about Anne's House of Dreams and this character. So I'm not sure, and I'm very tempted to contact the creator and find out what scene is actually being represented here by this Four of Pentacles, because I'm not sure, but I might have to just reread these books and see. Five of Pentacles, Anne at the orphanage. I can't remember a specific scene. I did hear, I was sort of reading about the new Anne Within a adaptation, that there is a scene where Marilla returns Anne to the orphanage in that series, which could be what's been depicted here, but I've not seen it, so I'm not sure. And Marilla never returns Anne to the orphanage in the books. So, but Anne is at an orphanage in her early life, so it could be just referring to that. Six of Pentacles, this is another one I absolutely love. This I think is the house, Patty's Place, that that Anne and her friends rent out when they're students, or it could be the House of Dreams from later on. But it reminds me of the one from, was it the Queen of Swords, with the little matching set of dogs that were in the house, Patty's Place. I always dreamed of living in a house like that as a student. My student house wasn't quite so fancy, but it was one of my favorite sections of the books. Then Seven and Eight of Pentacles, these are kind of similar. I think that's Gilbert studying, working hard in the Seven of Pentacles, playing the long game, trying to qualify as a doctor. And then we have the Eight of Pentacles is Anne, sort of working hard and trying to study her. Looks like she's working on her math for school. The Nine of Pentacles, not too sure. Again, we have an older woman, so it could be Rachel Lynde, or it could be the character that I mentioned before from the Emmeline's grandmother, from the Anne of Green Gables, the sequel TV adaptation. That could be referring to her because she was quite wealthy and was living alone, I think. So that would fit quite well with her. Ten of Pentacles, we have sort of Anne of Ingleside style, Anne and Gilbert and a child. Page of Pentacles, this is lovely. This is Marilla with Anne, and she's getting her first copies of her book, celebrating her success. Knight of Pentacles, Matthew, out working hard in the fields. Queen of Pentacles, we have Marilla again, Lady of Home at Green Gables, of her just working hard at home, you know, on the farm, providing the meals as well. And yeah, it just fits Queen of Pentacles perfectly. Love that. And then we have, as the very last one, the King of Pentacles. I think we're back to Catherine at Kingsport Ladies College, blowing the whistle, and the girls all lining up, and everything being quite regimented and controlled in her lessons. And then of course Anne struggling to control the children quite so well as that. So that is the Anne of Green Gables tarot deck, and as you can see, it has brought up for me so many lovely memories of the Anne of Green Gables books and my own childhood and the TV series. The little guidebook, as I say, it's a short little guidebook. It has keywords for all the cards. It has a few nice illustrations where there's a little bit more of an explanation. There's positive and negative keywords for each card. And then at the very back, the creator has suggested some resources, which is great. They have recommended Rachel Pollock and Bennabelle Wen and Biddy Tarot and the Tarot Lady for some resources. They've suggested doing one card draws, and yeah, and that's it. There's a little bit of room for notes at the back. So the creator of this deck is, again, a disordered mind _zines on Instagram. And I think they've done just a lovely, lovely job with this deck. I love that sort of, I suppose it's a little bit like a kind of fan art, or I guess it is like a fan art project. There's something about this. I've never really understood what people are talking about when they talk about doing inner child work. And when I had this deck in my hands, I suddenly realized this is exactly the deck I could do inner child work with, because when I think about Anne, I think about myself as a child. I think about me as a 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old, the hopes and dreams I had then, the things that I found difficult then. Like, it really brings that part of my life back again. So I think this is a deck that will have quite a unique place in my collection, actually, and that I will use for some quite personal work. It's not going to be just like the Game of Thrones tarot, which I also have, which I don't really read with, although partly that's because the readings I get from the Game of Thrones tarot are very dark. But no, I think this is a deck that I will be doing personal work to read with, and will be enjoying working with, because it has so many lovely associations from my own childhood. So thank you so much for watching. 45 minutes. If you've still watched this long, you must be an Anne of Green Gables fan yourself. So let's hear all the fangirl comments in the comments below. What cards did you think were fabulous? What cards made you just sort of squeal out to yourself going, oh yes, I remember that scene? Or some of the cards that I wasn't too sure about what they were for, what scenes they represented. If you know, tell me in the comments below. And as I say, I'll put the creator's name and information below, so that if you want to snaffle a copy of this, if there are any left. It was a Kickstarter, is my understanding, but there are a few left over that you're able to order directly from the creator if you are interested. So thank you for watching, and I will see you back here again soon. Bye.